Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And a number of interesting things to dive into today. SlasheR revealing not only the players he'd most likely team with within Call of Duty history, but also some of the players that he almost teamed up with this past offseason. Where could that potentially have been? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really up to the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, this from the Call of Duty League let us know my favourite map and mode combo is on ... in Call of Duty history. Mine, I mean, okay, let me think about this. Standoff Hardpoint has got to be up there from back in the Black Ops 2 days. I would also say Stronghold Hardpoint from Black Ops 3. Like, it's got to be right up there. Probably some of the Hardpoints. Redwood Search and Destroy also gets an honorable mention in my book. That's got to be at the top of the list as well. There was just, I mean, Black Ops 3, I could go through a number of map mode game combinations in that one, to be honest. But a few interesting replies. This firstly from Simp, we did mention this and touch on this earlier today. Comeback, Uplink, this was a combination back in the Advanced Warfare days. So this is when Uplink, of course, was played professionally during that kind of jetpack era. Comeback as well was a map that was only played, I'm pretty sure, in Uplink, but it was a very good one. It was OpTic's strongest map for a very long period of time. It's kind of funny, really, that Simp, I mean, Simp was like 15 during Black Ops 3, so he must have been 14 during Advanced Warfare, and still he reckons that's his favourite map mode combination in COD history. I can't imagine how deadly this guy would have been if he'd actually been able to compete at that age, which, I mean, to be fair, you could actually, during Advanced Warfare, you could actually compete at 15, and then when the Worldly came into play from Black Ops 3, then you can do that anymore. This also from a Thatcher that was funny. He likes being sarcastic on the timeline. Miami Search and Destroy may be the best map mode combination ever from Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I do wonder, really, looking back on that game, why it wasn't necessarily replaced at some point or another. There were potentially maps that could have replaced it, to be honest. People were talking about like Apocalypse Search and Destroy and stuff like that at the time, but I guess that there were some memorable moments on the map at the very least. But it was a bit of a snooze fest for 15 or so minutes while it went on, especially when it went all the way to the round 11. This also from the Dallas Empire raid and hardpoints. Of course, this is one of the greatest, honestly, hardpoint finishes I've ever seen in Call of Duty history. This is how things finished off. Dallas Empire versus Toronto Ultra at, I mean, I guess this is like the World Championship, or was it, I think it was Stage 5 Major of the World Championship. It was right to the end of the year, something or another. And this was just a completely ridiculous map, if you guys remember this one, where it looked like Toronto were going to break in and make it happen. But Crimsix, that nade from Crimsix right there was so important in stopping Ultra's momentum. And then Shotzi and Coke it in, they get 4 dead, and they win the entire thing, 250-248. This was one of the greatest things, and I'm pretty sure iLLeY gets hyped as a result of this. I mean, who wouldn't, honestly, completing a comeback like this in, well, a pretty important series, no doubt. Let's talk about this then, right? So, Chrono CDL Intel, we talked about this a couple of days ago, the whole Washington Demon Cats or whatever, the possibility of that. So, a couple of interesting clips that came up from the flank yesterday with SlasheR. Firstly, we did touch on this yesterday, but I wanted to actually share the clip because it is hilarious, about the potential names for the New York subliners. Supposedly, they were in a meeting with the subliners, like, effectively like the marketing people that had decided what the name was going to be, and all the top New York guys. And when they were revealing to them that the name was going to be the New York subliners. And at the time, you guys remember, subliners was like, what even is a subliner? Like, how does that even make any sense? It seems somehow tied to like the subway and the underground, but it's not really clear what even it is. Subliners as a name really got a lot of flack at the time. But since then, I think it's grown a lot of people, and NYSL is a nice little, like, I suppose, like acronym that you can use, kind of like the New York Excelsior, like their Overwatch League team, the NYXL, I guess, is what people call that one. But anyway, there were some other options for the New York team. A couple of the ones that stand out. Firstly, the Neon Kids, but also the Pizza Rats. Pizza Rats is just hilarious. I mean, like, it's just so straightforward. Okay, what does New York have? It has pizza, it has rats. Okay, we'll go Pizza Rats. Like, no more thought process than that. But the other clip I wanted to share just after that was this, where, well, they were asking SlasheR, or at least one of the questions came out on the Reddit, which players in Call of Duty history would you most like to team with? Of course, Methods is like, look, it's going to be Simp and aBeZy. Like, those are the obvious two, and SlasheR's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. But also, like, outside of those, because those are kind of the obvious answer over the FaZe clan right now, two other players he mentions are Crimsix and Scump, two players he's never teamed with, but Crimsix especially was very close to teaming with apparently just this past offseason. Where could that potentially have been?
And speaking of team names real quick before we move on to the Reddit questions, Attach was putting it in the chat a little bit, but there were also some other team names that New York was telling us about that were high up on the list that almost got chosen. There was the New York Pizza Rats. Pizza Rats was...
Wait, are you being dead serious?
Dead serious. Pizza Rats was almost our name. New York Pizza Rats. That was going to be our name.
Holy
Then Dylan put the other one in the chat. Then Neon Kids, New York Neon Kids was another one.
I actually don't mind that one.
I think that's worse than Pizza Rats. I think Neon Kids is worse than Pizza Rats.
Like subliners sounds
exactly. When we heard all that, we were like, okay, subliners is lit. And the questions for SlasheR says, name 2 pros you have always wanted to team with, but couldn't/haven't, and why?
Can I answer it for you, and then tell me if I'm wrong?
What?
Simp and aBeZy?
See, I feel like that's the easy answer, so I'm gonna give a different one.
But is that your answer if you had to
that's
choose?
probably my answer right now.
Okay, I'm on the same page.
I'm gonna give probably say besides those two, I'll probably say Crim, which is actually really close to happening this offseason, by the way.
Your Crim would be a good duo on top.
Really
that
close.
team would break up in 3 days.
No, it wouldn't, bro. No, it wouldn't.
That did almost happen.
Okay.
I think me and Crim would actually get along on a team fairly
Oh my
well.
god, you're so wrong.
Real quick, chat. Stop spamming demon
right.
pussies. Come on.
I
What are
think
we,
so.
5?
Say Crim and who else?
And then probably Seth, which could have happened at multiple different times as well. It just never ended up coming through. But yeah, those are probably my two outside of Simp and aBeZy.
Yeah, I think Seth is a good shout for sure. Even Porter's a good shout. Like Crim, Seth. Seth was like one of them for me. I was very close to team with Seth, like really close. And then
so this is quite the revelation, I think, really from SlasheR and Crimsix. The fact that, yes, it seemed like it was relatively quick as soon as the offseason was getting underway. The SlasheR was signed to LAG and all of that was locked in. But supposedly there were some serious discussions ongoing. The fact that maybe Crimsix and SlasheR could have teamed up. Because to be fair, we talked about it during the middle of the season. That, okay, like maybe SlasheR could even come into Dallas. We did talk about the possibility of that at a time if they needed like another AR, maybe Crimsix can go down to kind of the flex role and SlasheR can come in. Because to be fair, we know now, looking back on the season, that Dallas wanted Clayster in the middle of the year for Clay and Crim to team up again on Dallas, but it didn't happen because New York were actually pretty good at that time around stage 3. But SlasheR was benched at the time, and it was not out of the realms of possibility that that could have happened for Dallas. There was actually a fair bit of talk about it as being a possibility. As it turns out, it could have happened during the off-season as well. Now, where could this have happened? That, of course, is the big question, because you look at pretty much all these organizations, which of them are possible for even both of these guys to join? As it turns out, it seems Crimsix is going to end up on New York alongside Clayster, Hydra, and Neptune. And Guerrillas, of course, we know what that team's going to be. It's going to be, I mean, these are last season's rosters, but of course, this season is going to be Huke, Asim, Gunless, and SlasheR. But that seemed to go down relatively quickly. We do know, I believe, from what the Los Angeles Guerrillas guys said, that SlasheR was effectively the last player they signed. They got the rest of the guys first, and then they needed an AR, and SlasheR was a free agent. They got him in. But Crimsix and SlasheR apparently were in discussions. So, whether that was Crimsix to go to LAG, which doesn't really make all that much sense, right? Given what I just said, right, with Huke, Asim, and Gunless seeming like a pretty solidified team of 3 very early on. But could it have been the other way round, right? Could it have been Crimsix and SlasheR going to New York? Like, was Clayster actually going to return there? Like, I don't know, maybe there was a possibility of them getting rid of Clay and SlasheR comes in as well as Crimsix on that team, because it's like, how many other organizations would both of those guys go to? Rokkr were never going to change. Of course, Dallas Empire Crimsix wasn't going to be on there and again because they're teaming with OpTic now. FaZe aren't going to change. It wasn't going to be, I imagine, the Mutineers because they don't want to spend any money. Was never going to be London. Thieves, of course, were doing their own thing and SlasheR was never going to be there, and he said yesterday that he was never going to be there because Octane was coming into that team. Toronto were never going to change. Paris were never going to do it because they don't pay the money. So it's like, which team could he actually potentially team up with apart from maybe Seattle? But like, even Seattle seem to have their own ideas. So really, by process of elimination, I can only find 2 reasonable candidates for where SlasheR and Crimsix could have both been teaming, and LAG still doesn't make that much sense. So maybe it would have been New York and Clayster could have been out of there. But that sounds kind of surprising to me. I'm not really sure. He also talks about Scump as well, though, the fact that he wanted to team with him for a while. And there was some talk about that, to be fair, with OpTic Chicago, that some people at the end of the year were suggesting, yeah, Formal's got to be the one to be dropped, and maybe you just replace Formal with SlasheR and you make that work. I mean, that'd be a very interesting team dynamic, that's for sure. I'm not sure how well SlasheR and Dashy would get on, in all honesty, but I mean, still, it could have been something that happened. As it turns out, not the case. Still a nasty LAG team, I'm pretty sure, going forwards. Also wanted to talk about this, because of course, yesterday, this clip came out we looked at. I won't share this same clip again, but talking about OpTic Gaming Los Angeles during the Modern Warfare season wanted to pick up Mack and Pharaoh. That didn't happen. What SlasheR doesn't say, though, in this clip, which is kind of interesting, really, is that at the start of the year, they decided to get JCap when they could have actually got iLLeY onto their team. Now, of course, looking back, it's always hindsight's 2020, right? To be fair, I thought that JCap in that team at the time was going to be a pretty solid move and made a lot of sense in terms of what he could bring to the team. As it turns out, the entire team didn't really work, but supposedly iLLeY was turned down for that opportunity during Modern Warfare when he actually could have been over at OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, and a few other offers he got as well. Ended up joining the Dallas Empire, of course, and winning the World Championship on that title at the end of it.
For MW, I'm curious. Oh, let me think. Okay, I got Paris. I thought I was gonna join OGLA for a bit, but they picked JCap over me. Let me see what else. New York. New York was hitting me up until like they like realized I was with MV. Other team. I don't know. I got egoed by a lot of teams, to be honest.
Wanted to finish off with this then from the flank. Who is your Codfather? So a lot of pro players really like who's the guy who took their first chance on them, I suppose. I think for a lot of fans and people like myself, it's probably a guy like Scump, to be honest, if you want to look at it from that lens, because to be fair, it was pretty much watching Scump's YouTube videos back in the Black Ops 2 days that really got me interested in competitive Call of Duty. I'd have to give it something along those lines. But for a lot of the pro players, it can be a professional player that picked them up early on, gave a chance to them, and you see definitely some recurring names right here. As Octane says, JCab methods gives the question mark. What are you confused about, says Cab. Definitely, giving some opportunities over the years. JCab and Octane definitely had some good success back in, for example, the World War II days on that Luminosity Gaming roster. This also from Zuma, the GOAT at James Crowder. This is definitely a very common pick, really. And this is kind of the thing. When you're putting like your top 30 lists together, which is very difficult to do, we may try one on the Breaker Boy podcast relatively soon, but maybe people have got tired of the top 30 list by now. I think they probably have, to be honest. Top 15 maybe you can do, but any further than that, it gets kind of chaotic. But it's kind of like, where do you put a guy like Crowder on the list? Where do you like, of course, in terms of if you want to go down the Rambo Ray route of who was like the most MVP type caliber players, then Crowder might not necessarily be there. But in terms of contribution to the game and also like being the analyst for FaZe and being a player for FaZe and then coming back to compete and winning a championship with that team as well during World War II, pretty remarkable player, really. And even what he's done since then, right, as a coach, and how he took so many chances on great players, the likes of Zuma, and you see also people like Asim talking about it as well, in Crowder as well. Definitely leaving a fantastic legacy on the game, but also this from JP Chris I thought was kind of nice. MLG Puckett, legendary name, face and voice really within esports in general. Definitely paved the way, I'm sure, for a lot of casting talent, but also guys like JP who worked for MLG for quite a while before moving into the analyst role now for the subliners. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really upset the YouTube market on it. You enjoy this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well. And I'll grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.